Story 1. The child was left behind on a rainy night. That night, it rained, and I was completely alone. That memory has faded over the years. But the feeling that night, the feeling of excitement, fear, and coldness to the bone, is still fresh in my mind. My name is Emily, and this happened when I was very young. Maybe second or third grade. At that time, I didn't know what real fear was. I only knew that being home alone was something very special. I clearly remember the feeling of excitement when my parents told me they were going to an event tonight. Maybe a fundraising party or some fancy dinner party. I don't remember clearly. But I remember they were dressed very well. Dad was wearing a suit, and Mom was wearing perfume that I really liked, smelling like jasmine mixed with the first rain of the season. By the time they brought me home after picking me up at school, it had started to rain lightly. But near dusk, the sky really opens the valve. The rain poured down as if the sky had just been torn apart. I remember sticking my face against the living room window, watching cartoons, and listening to the sound of rain hitting the corrugated iron roof and concrete floor like continuous drums. That rain was unlike any before. It was like a warning. But I was too young to understand. My parents planned to return right after the event, but they called home on the landline, the phone with a long twisted cord that I used to use to pretend to be an astronaut, to say that it was raining too hard. The road was slippery and dark, so they decided to spend the night at a friend's house nearby. I remember my mother apologizing profusely over the phone. "I'm sorry, honey. I hate leaving you home alone. Are you scared?" Her voice trembled as if she was the one left behind. But I, on the contrary, felt excited. I said like an adult, "I'm fine. Mom, I'm not hungry. I can take care of myself." And really, I believe I am. Mom was not reassured, so she made a list of things must do before going to bed. Lock all main doors and windows. Close the curtain. Turn on a light. And especially don't go out. I promised like porridge, but in my mind, those words passed like the wind. I was too young to understand the importance of those simple things. I just know that a night without adults is a world of freedom. I can eat an entire bag of candy without getting yelled at. I can stay up late without anyone telling me to turn off the TV. I can do what every child dreams of, being the owner of their own home. I remember eating almost an entire bag of Skittles and drinking soda from my mother's ceramic cup. A cup she never let me touch for fear I would break it. I sat curled up on the sofa, watching my favorite cartoons over and over again. The rain was still pouring down, and sometimes, the sound of thunder made the TV flicker. But I'm not afraid, I thought. I'm really brave. I told myself that I would complete all the tasks my mother assigned me before going to bed. But then, I fell asleep. Not the kind of fading out of sleep, but the kind overslept due to low blood sugar from eating too many sweets. Drowsiness came like a wave, and just a blink later, I was curled up on the sofa. The TV turned to a silent black screen. I don't know how long it took me to wake up. I only know that it was dark. The room was cold, and I saw something incorrect. The atmosphere, which was once cozy with the soft light from the TV and the familiar sound of rain, now became eerie. Everything seemed still, waiting. When I opened my eyes, there was a part of me that realized this night was not going to be normal. But I'm not afraid yet. Not yet. There was only one thought in my mind at that time. Mom would be very angry if she knew I didn't do what she told me to do. I don't want to disappoint her. I don't want to lose the trust my parents just gave me, the right to stay home alone as an adult. I dragged myself off the sofa and into the dark hallway, still believing that if I did everything my mother said, everything would be okay. I won't be scolded. I would sleep over. And the next morning, when my parents came home, I could tell them that I had done well. Very well. Little did I know, that night, the scariest thing not outside the door. It's already in. If you find your heart beating faster after this paragraph, do it like video. Share for someone who has experienced similar feelings. And subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, where stories that seem to have sunk into oblivion are told with real voices and real emotions. Because, some nights, the past never sleeps peacefully. Remember to lock all the doors before going to bed. My mother's voice rang through the landline, steady but full of worry. I sat on the sofa, curled up with a big pillow on my lap, never taking my eyes off the TV screen showing cartoons. My parents are half a city away, stuck because of a sudden night rain. From the other end of the phone, My mother spoke in a voice trying to stay calm, but I could hear the tension in her every breath. Don't forget to close the curtains. It's okay to keep the kitchen light on all night. Don't turn it off. And don't go out, Emily, no matter what you hear. I replied like a machine. Yes. I know. Mom, do you promise? I promised. I'm fine. Mom, really? Actually. In my heart at that time there was only one feeling. Excited. Stupidly. Childishly excited. My parents for the first time in my life leave me home alone. I have an entire house. The house, too big for three. That my mother used to joke about, just for me tonight. No one forces you to go to bed early. No one limits sweets. No one told me, don't leave the lights on all the time wasting electricity. I hung up and put the receiver back on the old phone stand near the stairs. The wind blew making the glass door tremble slightly. A bolt of lightning flashed outside the kitchen window. And the whole house shuddered in the flash of light. I knew I should go check the doors. Draw the curtains. Key lock. But I didn't do it right away. Instead, I rummaged through the kitchen cabinets for a packet of marshmallows, a packet of sour candy, and 2 cans of soda. I spread it all out on the table like a mini party. Then sat down on the sofa and replayed my favorite cartoon. The rain outside at that time only seemed to make the space more cozy. Like the perfect background sound for my solo party. I thought, I'll do all the things Mom told me to do right before I go to sleep. But that will never happen. I just sat there watching, chewing candy, then leaned on the sofa a little more. And when the sleepiness quietly came, I didn't even realize it. It came like a mist, gentle, soft, then suddenly I couldn't remember anything. I overslept. My head tilted to one side. The living room lights were still dimly lit. The TV was still playing repeats of the episodes that I had memorized. My mother still didn't know that the daughter she trusted had not followed instructions. Didn't lock the door at all. Don't pull the curtains. Not enough lights on. And nothing prepares you to face it, something may be waiting in the dark. When I opened my eyes a few hours later, something had changed. The air in the room was heavy and strangely cold. Not the kind of cold that comes from the weather, but the kind of cold that makes my skin prickly. Makes me shrink without knowing why. The TV is off. The room was almost in darkness, with only the kitchen light emitting a weak yellow light from afar. I vaguely remember what my mother told me. I did nothing. I was silent for a moment, trying to calm myself, then said to myself, it's okay. We still have time to do it now. Just check the door, close the curtains, turn on more lights and then go back to sleep. But there was a part of me that was starting to feel uneasy. At that time, I couldn't name that feeling. But now, thinking back, I know what it was. Premonition. I had a feeling that I had lost my only safe time. That the moment I fell asleep, something out there has started to move. The front door was still half open. The living room window curtains were still flapping in the wind. I stood up and walked as if hypnotized towards the window, not daring to look straight out. My hand trembled slightly as I grabbed the door handle, not because of the cold, but because of a feeling I couldn't name. I reassured myself, maybe nothing. It could just be the rain, the wind, or just imagination, but maybe not. Emily's story has just begun. A seemingly small promise, I will lock the door, led to a series of moments that she will never forget. Everything in that house began to change since Emily closed her eyes and fell asleep. And the thing that makes me shiver the most is the little girl not alone. Let's like and share this video if you've ever had a feeling of insecurity in your own home. That vague but clear feeling someone is watching you from a dark corner. And if you want to know what happens next with Emily, please subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because the sequel will reveal what lies behind the partially open closet door, where light never reaches. Have I locked the door yet? That question suddenly appeared in my mind like a cut. Light, but sharp. I sat up on the sofa that I initially intended to lie down on for a few minutes. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only a little light from the kitchen light in the distance. The TV had been turned off at an unknown time. Perhaps it went into sleep mode after no one touched it. I rubbed my eyes, but instead of sleepiness, what I felt most clearly was the cold. Not a pleasant cold, not the kind of cold that comes at night. It's a quiet, deep cold, like the warmth of the house been drained while I sleep. I pulled the thin blanket on the chair and wrapped it around me. But I still shivered. At that moment, I thought, maybe the heater is broken. But deep inside, I knew something wasn't right. I listened. There was nothing but the sound of rain tapping on the glass, steady and persistent. But it was that silence that made me more worried. I began to remember my mother's instructions: to lock all the doors, close the curtains, and turn on at least one light to keep the house from getting too dark. I was planning on doing all those things, but I fell asleep. I looked out into the hallway, the place leading to the main door and the back door. From where I sat, I couldn't see clearly, but a part of me don't want to go there. Not because of laziness, it's because of fear. I'm afraid that if I get up and go check, I'll discover something about me shouldn't know. I stood up, each step heavy. The house was so quiet that I could hear the floor squeak under my feet. I walked out into the hallway, touched the main door handle. The door is locked. Locked the back door? Also. I ran quickly through the house as if completing an assigned task. Checking every window and every lock. Everything is closed. So why do I still feel cold? Why? I still feel it like someone is here with me? I don't know how to describe it. But that feeling doesn't come from the outside. It comes from in the house. It was as if someone had walked in while I was sleeping. Had walked through the living room, as quiet as the wind, and was hiding somewhere, just waiting for me to turn my back. I quietly walked into the kitchen. The refrigerator door was slightly ajar. I must have forgotten to close it completely when I got the soda. I gently pushed it closed. And one unexpected memories rushing back, memories of my grandfather. I remember the day he passed away. It was raining like this. Mom hugged me tightly. Her eyes were red and swollen, and kept repeating that he had gone to heaven. I didn't understand, so I asked, "Why don't you come back anymore, Mom?" And my mother said something that I will never forget. "When people leave, Emily, they leave behind a cold silence. Not because it's cold, but because my heart lacks their warmth." I don't know why that memory is flooding back now, but it brought me to tears. Maybe because I'm scared, maybe because I'm sad, or maybe because I feel that cold silence right in my own house tonight. I walked closer to the kitchen window and closed the curtains. But before that, I glanced out. There was nothing but darkness and rain. But deep in my heart, I know there's something waiting. I turned around, intending to return to the sofa to cover myself with a blanket and forget everything, when a small sound made me stop. Cup. A soft sound, almost like the sound of a wooden door creaking when someone was there very gently push it out, then close it. That sound didn't come from behind. Which word upstairs? From my bedroom. I stood dumbfounded. The wind outside howled through the window. But that sound, the sound of the door, I knew very well. That is wardrobe door in my room. It only makes that sound when someone is there open or close. The night hasn't ended yet, and Emily still doesn't know what's waiting for her upstairs, in the darkness, where memories and fears blend together. If you've ever had an inexplicable night, a night where a feeling of unease crept like fog into every corner of the house, try share this story. Let's click like and subscribe to the channel after 0 hours to continue with Emily to the next part, the scariest and quietest of the story. The closet door is open. And what is hiding behind the darkness? The rain seems to be howling outside, but it's not the sound of the rain that's keeping me up at night. After checking all the doors, closing all the curtains, and reassuring myself that everything was okay, I slowly climbed the stairs back to the bedroom. The hallway light emitted a dim yellow light, not enough to reassure me, but not so dark that it scared me too much. I kept walking step by step, my bare feet touching the soft but ice-cold carpet. The higher I climbed, the more clearly I felt the storm outside. The wind howled like distant, muffled screams. The rain pounded on my room's glass door like small fists punching repeatedly, trying to find a way inside. Under the dim light, water droplets slid down the glass window in streams like tears. I'm not afraid of the rain, really. There are nights when I even leave the window open to listen to the sound of the rain lulling me to sleep. But this night is unlike any other rainy night I've ever experienced. This sound of rain is not gentle, but angry, as if it was trying to warn me of something. Or, as if someone is trying to break the glass door to get in. I gently opened the door to my room. The light from the hallway shines on familiar objects, bookshelves, small beds, star-shaped night lights, and tall wardrobe against the wall. I don't dare look directly at it. I turned on the room light. The cold white light from the ceiling tube light made everything clearer, but not more pleasant. I entered the room, closed the door, and gently sat down on the bed. From that position, I can still clearly hear the wind whistling through the windows. A flash of lightning tore through the sky, followed by a roar of thunder as if someone had just flipped the sky upside down. I tried to lie down. Pull the blanket up to your chin. Close your eyes. Count your breaths, but can't sleep. Not because of the sound of rain, not because of lightning, but because one other noise. Creak, stuck? I opened my eyes. Ear strain. That sound did not repeat. I closed my eyes again. Creak, stuck? This time I heard clearly. There can be no mistake. It was the sound of wood creaking, as if someone was walking on old wooden floors. The floor is carpeted but still makes a characteristic sound when pressed heavily and slowly. But my room is covered with thick carpet. There can't be that sound. Can it? I sat up. My heart beat so loudly that I could hear each beat clearly. I looked around. The room was quiet. Everything was as motionless as a painting. I tried to explain myself. Maybe the sound is coming from the neighbor's house, or from an old heating system that creaks due to temperature changes. But deep inside me, I know it's footsteps, slow footsteps, as if someone was prowling, groping, on the floor of my room. I trembled and pulled the blanket close to my body, eyes glued to the space between the bed and the closet door. At that time, the lights were still on, but the light no longer feels safe. It just makes everything clearer, even the dark corners, even the gaps where shadows fall from the cabinets to the floor. The room seemed too quiet compared to the storm outside. Then one other noise rang out. Light, like some sound gently slide on the carpet. I looked down. Nothing, but the shiver spread from my neck down to my spine. There's something is in my room. Cannot explain, cannot be seen, but it's real. I tried to get up and run out of the room, but my feet were frozen. In that moment, all the images rushed into my head: mother, father, grandfather, this house, and feeling terribly guilty for not listening to my mother. I do not lock the door immediately. I overslept when you shouldn't sleep. And now, I don't know where I will wake up, if I wake up at all. A flash of lightning flashed. In that moment, just a brief second, I saw the shadow of the closet door. A small gap opens. I remember for sure. I closed it. No one ever opened it. Unless, when the howling wind and rain pounding on the glass are just the backdrop to what's moving in the dark. Emily must face the fact that sometimes what keeps us from sleeping is not the sound, but the silence that contains horror. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and felt someone was watching you? Have you ever heard an inexplicable noise and your heart immediately understood what it was? Like video if you've ever felt like Emily, alone, awake, and awake in nameless fear. Share if you want to warn someone. Never ignore the little signs of a hunch. And don't forget subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because in the sequel, Emily, you won't just hear noise anymore. The girl will see, and so are you. There's something in my closet. I still remember that moment clearly, even though it only happened for a split second. It was forever stamped on my mind. A bolt of lightning exploded outside the window, tearing through the night sky like a knife splitting the darkness. And for a moment as short as the blink of an eye, my room lit up, and me see it. Not a clear figure, not a specific shape, which is space, a gap. The door to my closet, which I made sure to keep closed when I tidied up the room before watching TV, was now ajar. Just a little, but enough for me know something is wrong. Enough to let the cold run down my spine, like someone had just ran a finger across my spine in the dark. I was dumbfounded. Don't say, not breathing, don't dare move. The room was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. I sat huddled on the bed like a small statue. All outside sounds, rain, wind, thunder, seemed to fade, giving way. Thick silence is surrounding me. I might be wrong, I whispered in my head. Maybe I forgot to close the cupboard properly. I'm still young. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe. But my heart knows. My body knows. There's something inside. Reason tried to find a reason, but instinct turned on red alerts. A silent scream echoed in my head. Don't look at that. Don't step closer. Don't touch that handle, Emily. But I couldn't take my eyes off it either. I wait, like if I'm quiet enough, if I stay still long enough, something in that darkness wouldn't notice me. 1 minute, 2 minutes, I'm not sure how long. It feels like time is stretched like rubber. Then, something strange happened. The cabinet made a small noise. Not loud, not clear, just a very slight hiss, as if one finger touched the edge of the door and slowly pushed it open a little more. And that's when I knew, there was no doubt about it. I'm not alone. I want to scream, actually, but my throat was tight. The cry was blocked in the middle of the chest. It's not because I can't scream. It's because I don't dare. I remember my mother. Remember her advice. Remembering the worried whisper on the phone. Don't forget to lock the door. Emily, I did it all, late. I let sleep defeat me. I was lazy and subjective. And now, I have to face the consequences. I decided to do the only thing I could do in the meantime. Don't move. If I lie still, pretending to be asleep, maybe, just maybe, the thing in the closet will think I know nothing. That it could leave. I slowly slid down onto the mattress. Pulled the blanket up to cover my head, leaving only a small gap enough to breathe. I lay there, in the dark, my heart beating so fast I was afraid it would knock on your own door to get out. Everything around me became a blur, as if the world was sinking into water. I closed my eyes, but all remaining senses were wide open. I listen, I feel, I guess. Someone is looking at me. I don't see that look, but I feel it through the blanket. It's a feeling you'll never forget if you ever experience it. Being followed in the dark by someone you cannot see. No sound, no words, only look, and intention. I don't know how much time has passed. I can't sleep, doesn't move either, just lying still, cold and shivering, afraid that if I moved even an inch, that thing will come out of the closet and touch me. I want to call Mom. I want to scream that I'm scared, that I regret, but those words could never escape from my throat. I believed I was old enough to stay home alone. I believed I was brave. But now, a slightly opened door broke everything. Do you remember the last time you were truly afraid? Not the kind of fear in horror movies. Which is the kind of fear that makes you don't dare breathe. Making every cell in your body scream, run now. But his feet were frozen. If you've ever been like Emily, feeling like you're being watched, like someone is lurking in a dark corner, do like and share this story. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, because the sequel won't just be about feelings anymore. Emily will hear footsteps, and this time, they're coming towards her. I don't remember how I got out of bed. I just know that if I stayed, I wouldn't be me anymore. I still remember that moment when the darkness in the closet stopped whispering and began quietly staring. I don't know if anyone is actually in there. I don't know if I imagined it all. But my body, my heart, my instincts, all said in unison, get out of here. Emily, go now. I pulled the blanket away, gently as if I was afraid it would make a sound. Put your feet on the floor. Each step trembles as if walking on thin ice that is about to break. I didn't dare look towards the closet anymore. I didn't dare turn back. I just walked, step by step, quietly. My eyes were blurry not because of the water, but because fear filled my throat. I left the room, my hands shaking so much that I had to grip the stair railing tightly to keep from collapsing. As soon as my feet touched the last step, I stopped walking, I started running. Don't look back, don't think. I run like if I stop for even a second, something will touch my shoulder from behind. I don't know where to go. The house became too big, too dark, too strange, even though I had lived there all my life. I slipped through the living room, tripped once on the carpet, then crawled under the dining table, where I used to sit and build Legos as a child. And then me cry, unobserved, no one listens, but my tears flowed non-stop. I didn't dare make a sound. I cried but had to cover my mouth. The fear inside me is so big. There is no more room to contain it. An 8-year-old child was hiding under the dinner table in the middle of the night. In a dark house, with his heart broken in his chest. I wish I had locked the door from the beginning. I wish my parents wouldn't go. I wish my grandfather was still alive to hold me up and say, it's okay. Baby girl, I'm just a baby. But I felt what adults call absolute loneliness. And then, like a nightmare song starting to beat, me heard footsteps. Slow, drag, and strange, not like normal human footsteps. Not rhythmic, not decisive, but each heavy thud mixed with a distorted clop sound, as if someone was jumping around without really knowing how to walk. The sound of footsteps hitting the wooden floor created a chaotic and distorted sound like a child learning to walk for the first time. I stiffened under the table. His face was buried in his knees. His hands clasped his legs. My breathing was ragged. And then, me see those legs. They slid into view, Two bare feet covered in mud. Dirty. Covered with scratches and bleeding. The skin on the legs is pale yellow like a person has been seriously ill for a long time. Her toes were curled. Her nails were unusually long and black. As if she had been left alone in the jungle for a year. I don't know if it's a man's leg or woman's. Don't know who it is. Just know that, that's not a normal person. The way they moved, stood, and appeared. It all made me feel like I was witnessing a nightmare come to life. And then, an object falls to the ground. Clang. The sound of metal hitting the cold tile floor rang out as sharp as a knife cutting into the silence. I was startled. My eyes opened so wide that I could no longer blink. The thing rolled a few times and stopped right in front of my shoe, a wrench. Big. Rust. There are mud marks. And, I swear, there is something dark red on the tip of the wrench. I don't dare think anymore. If that person bends down to pick up the wrench, they will see me. I kept my breath. Every cell in my body seemed tense and waiting. If I move, if I groan, if I shake violently, I will die. I'm sure about that. That person did not bend down. They stood still, so long that I thought they had turned to stone. Then they turned away. Every step staggered, lean, groping. I heard footsteps leaving the dining room. Walk along the hallway. I clearly heard the front door opens, then closes. I still don't move. I can't believe I'm still alive. Not sure the nightmare is over. Just know that, under the table that day, I became a different person. Another Emily. Knew what it was like to face death when there was no one to protect you. Have you ever seen evil up close? So close that you can hear its footsteps. Smell the mud and blood. See its eyes without looking directly? If you're listening this far, please share this story. Like if you ever feel like you're being watched in the very place that should be the safest, his house. And let's subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because in the next part, Emily will face something that even adults can't believe it. And eventually, the truth will emerge, even if it brings no peace. When the door closed, I still couldn't believe I was alive. I lay still under the table for a long time after the last footsteps faded into the silence. I don't remember how long. 10 minutes? 30? 1 hour? Time no longer had any meaning. Only my heart rate was slowly slowing down from the panic attack. And my ragged breath still smelled of tears. There is no sound of rain anymore. Windless. Nothing. But the silence after the storm. A strange kind of silence that made me feel even more shivery. But I know one thing. That guy is gone. I don't hear his voice anymore. Not hearing footsteps. Not breathing. Not feeling like I was being watched. I can't explain why I'm so sure. I just know. With all my trembling heart. I know. And so, me crawl out from under the table. I stood up, my legs still numb, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I bent down, pick up the wrench, go up. My hand tightened around it, not because I wanted to keep it as a weapon. But because, I didn't want my parents to see it. I don't want them to know what just happened. I was too young to understand why I kept such a secret. Just know that. Fear of being scolded, because I didn't do what my mother said. Because I overslept, and because I didn't lock the door early, made me choose to stay silent. I quietly walked out the main door. I locked the door, careful, slowly. Then I looked around the living room one last time, and climbed back upstairs. My room is still the same. The light is still on. The closet door was still ajar, but this time, I wasn't scared anymore. I stepped closer. My hand touched the doorknob. And I close it. Lightly. No shaking. Then I climbed into bed and pulled the blanket up. Don't crawl into it like a child running away anymore. But like a little girl who had just overcome something that she herself did not fully understand. I fell asleep at an unknown time. Just know that, during that sleep, I had no nightmares. The next morning, sunlight flooded into the room as if everything last night was just a dream. But I know it's not. Because the wrench I hid behind the sofa is still there. And I have changed. Parents return at noon. They hugged me and apologized profusely for leaving me home alone. I smiled, trying to act as normal as possible. I didn't tell them anything. Not at that time. Not next week. Not next year. It takes to a very long time later. When I was a young woman, I was brave enough to tell that story to them. My mother was silent. My father kept asking again and again, "Is it true?" And when they found out, the first thing they did was not scold. Mom hugged me tightly, then burst into tears, and she said, "You were very brave, Emily. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you." I lived with that experience for many years. I'm afraid of the dark. I can't sleep when the closet door is not closed. I usually turn on the night light and check the door 3 or 4 times per night. But gradually, I learned how that event doesn't control me anymore. I started writing down what I was going through, then tell others, and I realized, every time I told, my fear became a little smaller. My story doesn't have a horrible ending. Bloodless. There is no death, but it's real, and it changed me. I learned the most important thing from that night. The trust that adults give you is a gift. And if you're not careful, it can become a hole that allows danger to creep in. Not everyone is as lucky as me, being able to tell everything with a happy ending. So, if you are listening to this story and you live alone, or simply go to bed every night not sure if the door is locked or not, please stop for a few minutes to check. Not because you are weak, but because being careful can save you, and those who love you. If Emily's story touched you, if you were ever a scared child under the table, or ever experienced the feeling of being left in the middle of the night without anyone to protect you, please drop like for that girl. Please comment if you have a similar experience, or want to share your own story. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, where we tell stories that seem to have been silent, to remind you that sometimes the things we don't dare to mention are the things that make us stronger than ever. Because not every child survives the night with courage alone. But Emily did it, and you can too. Story 2: Nightmare in a Rainy Night Park. I'm 15 years old and can't sleep. But not for the reason you think. My name is Elias, and if you've never known the feeling of staying up all night just because a small sound, then you probably won't understand me. I'm one of those people for whom sleep never comes easily. No matter how soft music you play, a fan on, or how soft a pillow you use, just one unusual noise will keep me awake until morning. No one knows why. There is no clear diagnosis, no specific pathology. The doctor just called it that chronic sleep disorder. For me, it is a curse. That night was a rainy night, not a thunderstorm, but not a light rain either. A rain long and heavy, enough to tap the roof for hours on end. I lay in my room, the lights off, my eyes wide open. The raindrops fell like the sound of metal hitting the glass wall. Persistent, noisy, as if the rain didn't come to cool me, but to make me angry. Crazy. My family is sleeping. Mom, Dad, all were deep in their dreams. I'm the only one still awake. Alone. It's past midnight. I tried counting sheep, tried meditating, tried repeating, I'm sleepy, but nothing worked. And then I remembered the park. There is a small park right next to my house. It's not too large, but quiet enough, and deserted enough, especially on a rainy night. I have walked there many times late at night when I couldn't sleep. There's something in the sound of the wind blowing through the trees, in the way the leaves rustle in the wind, in the stillness of the wet brick road, that makes my mind feel a little lighter. I put on a waterproof jacket and quietly walk down the stairs. Don't bring your phone. I know if I turn the screen on, the blue light will only keep me awake. I just need peaceful, just a little, my own space. I opened the back door and walked out. The cold air hit my face like a light slap, not painful, but enough to wake me completely. The rain fell evenly, not too much but not too little either. On the trees, each drop condensed and fell like a whisper. I shrugged my shoulders, put my hands in my coat pockets, then turned into the small path leading to the park. The street lights cast dull yellow light onto the wet ground, creating patchy shadows of trees and stone benches. No one but me, and in that moment, I felt relax. It felt like every sound in my head, every worry, every concern, every invisible knock on the door, was fading away with the sound of the rain. I walked around the park, walking under the trees. Each step makes a soft, squeak sound on the wet ground. I'm in no hurry. Don't be afraid. Don't think anything. Simply enjoy the feeling of being alone in the world. I used to think nights like that were own privileges, to be alone in conversation with the rain, to feel life slowing down in this always noisy world. But I was wrong. That night was not like the previous nights, unlike any night I've ever lived. And maybe it chose me. Have you ever walked alone at night? Have you ever searched for tranquility in the midst of chaos, only to find out can silence be scarier than any sound? Elias had thought that night was just a gentle stroll in the local park, something familiar, something harmless. But sometimes the most familiar things contain dangers we cannot predict. Elias's story just getting started. And if you think this is the most peaceful part, then you better prepare yourself. By after this quiet moment, what was waiting for him in the rain was not silence. It's a look and a smile that you will never forget. If you have ever stayed awake for some strange reason, or simply ever felt alone in your own home in the middle of the night, please drop like to support Elias. Comment if you've ever had late night habits like Elias, and ever felt like, I'm not alone anymore. And don't forget subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, where seemingly normal stories lead to unexpected outcomes. Stay tuned until the end, because tonight, Elias wasn't the only one awake. At first, I thought it was just a trash bag. After nearly half an hour of walking in the park, I felt much more comfortable. The chaotic thoughts in my head gradually drifted away, leaving a space that I desperately needed. The rain still falls steadily, but I don't mind anymore. It was like a loose blanket covering my mind, soothing the sadness. Slowing down the questions I wasn't ready to face, I turned around and followed the small path by the lake, toward the house. The wind began to blow stronger, and the rain became heavier. The ground was slippery, and I ducked my head to block the wind from my face. That's why I always walked straight to it before I realized what was waiting for me. Right in the middle of the paved road connecting the park with the residential area, there is one long, dark, motionless object. I stopped, frowned and looked. At first, I thought it was a trash bag or a tarp blown away by the wind. But the more I looked, the more I felt insecure. I stepped closer, my muddy shoes lifting each heavy step. When the distance was only about 10 meters, I stopped. Under the dim light from a nearby lamppost, I could see more clearly. That's not a trash bag. It's a person. A person was lying face down in the middle of the road. Motionless, does not react to the sound of rain, wind, or light shining directly on them. The clothes were dark, as if they had been soaked in rainwater for a long time. Immobility, don't stir. My heart skipped a beat. I stood silently, don't know what to do. The first reflex is anxiety. Is this person injured? Falling? Beaten? Or had an accident? I looked around, but the park was completely deserted. No one else, just me, the rain, and that body lying motionless. I gingerly took a few more steps. My palms were cold and sweaty. I don't feel relaxed anymore. The peaceful feeling of the walk before was completely suffocated, replaced by a simmering tension. Like a string stretched to the point of just waiting to break. I was going to call that person, but at that moment, a strange sound rang out. A-H-H. That hissing sound tore through the air. Unlike any sound I had ever heard. It doesn't sound like human language. Doesn't sound like an animal. It like something in pain or anger. I was startled and turned my head toward the source of the noise, the forest on the left side of the park. Right behind the thick trees. But I don't see anything. There was only rain, leaves swaying in the wind, and a thick darkness. I swallowed hard. Instinct began to scream. I am no longer the Elias of quiet nights of relaxing walks. I'm a 15-year-old boy, standing in the middle of a rainy and windy park, in front of an unknown person, and just heard a sound coming from a place where there shouldn't be anything. And then, when I turned around, everything changed. That person is no longer lying face down. They're sitting up straight. Not slowly. Don't pretend. Witches sat up like a spring. Their heads tilted slightly. Their eyes seemed to look straight at me. I couldn't see their faces clearly because their hair was wet and covered. But I saw them smile. A strangely wide smile. Not happy, not friendly, but distorted, sick, as if they knew something I didn't. I couldn't utter a word. My body couldn't move. There's only one sentence left in my head that repeats. Run. But before I could move, he stood up and pulled out something. I don't have to look closely to know, it's a knife. And he started run towards me. Have you ever faced something so terrifying that your brain couldn't process it, but your body understood immediately? Elias decided to take a walk in the rain to calm his mind. But that night, what awaits you is not peace. It's a silhouette, a hiss. A person lies face down in the middle of the road, and a smile that almost stopped his breathing. Don't miss the next part of this story, when Elias had to run for my life, not knowing what was chasing him, and whether there was anyone waiting at the end of the road. If the story is making your heart beat faster, please like to support Elias. Share if you ever have a moment where you feel the world is quiet around you suddenly turned into a nightmare. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because in the next part, Elias will run, and you will see life and death may just be a part one step. I don't remember screaming, but I clearly remember the feeling when his eyes locked on me. That moment was like slow motion. That stranger, who once lay motionless in the middle of the road, is now sitting up straight. His head tilted strangely, his wet hair sticking to his face. Under the dull yellow light, I saw one smile. Not a friendly smile. Not the, "I'm fine. Don't worry," kind of smile. It's the kind of smile that makes people smile cold. A crooked smile. Absurdly wide, as if that face no longer belongs to a human. He didn't blink. Not slow. Simply, stand up. And then, pulled something out of his pocket. The rain fell like a curtain, but I could still see the flash of cold steel. One kitchen knife. Long. Rust. The tip of the blade had something dark stuck to it. I didn't want to know what it was. Before I could react, he started running towards me. His legs wobbled as if he were both drunk and crazy. But his speed was not slow at all. And at that moment, I had no time to think anymore. I run. I don't know which direction I ran. Don't know what's ahead. Just know behind is the man holding the knife. Was chasing me in the rain. Screaming like a wild animal. "I will kill you. I will kill you." That scream tore through the night. No one responded. There's no one to save me. I slipped once when my foot tripped over a tree root sticking out of the ground. Mud splashed onto my shirt. My hands were sore from slipping on the wet grass. But I didn't stop. I have no choice. I only know one thing. If I fall again, he will come in time. My heart was beating like it was about to break my chest. My head is dizzy from lack of oxygen. But in the meantime, an image flashed in my mind, the image of my sister. Kayla. The girl is only 8 years old. Last night, he crawled into my room, eyes sparkling like a kitten, and said, "Elias, can you tell me a story tomorrow? A ghost story is even better." I smiled and pinched his cheek. "No, ghost stories give me bad dreams. I'm not afraid, as long as I have you by my side." "Yes, I'll tell you tomorrow. Promise." I promised. And if I don't survive tonight, Kayla will wait forever without that story. That thought was like a strong blow that woke me up in the middle of a panic. I turned left and jumped in a section of dense forest right at the edge of the park, where I usually never dare to go alone at night. But this time, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm just scared the dim light behind me, where the maniac was still chasing me. I ran deep inside, stopping behind a large tree. With my back against the damp bark, I covered my mouth to suppress my breathing. I don't know if he's still chasing or not. I don't know if he saw me turn. But we don't dare move anymore. All it takes is a sound, a loud sigh, a breaking branch, and he will find me. And I am not sure I have the strength to run one more time. I closed my eyes and prayed. For the first time in years, I really am pray. No sound, not in words, but with the heart of a child. I don't want to die in the middle of the forest. Don't want to be remembered by someone just through a brief article on social networks. Time passed like frozen. The rain continued to fall, but I couldn't feel it anymore. I no longer knew whether I was cold, wet or hungry. Only fear remains, and the image of my little sister waiting for me by the window, hoping he would tell the story as promised. Have you ever felt like Elias? Feeling that no one hears your cries for help? That you're running in the dark, not knowing if there's a way out, just footsteps behind you. And something chasing you not because of reason, but because of instinct. Elias did not want to be the main character in this horrifying story. But life sometimes doesn't give us a choice. Stay tuned for the story, because in the next part, Elias will have to decide, hide forever, or face it. If you've ever had a night where your heart can't beat normally anymore, do it like to support Elias. Comment if someone, a younger sibling, a relative, was the reason that helped you overcome your biggest fear. And subscribe to the channel after 0 hours so as not to miss the next part. The dark place, not just the background, but the predator. I went into the forest, where the hissing sound came from, because it was my only choice. Or rather, my only hope of living. I don't have a plan. No direction. Only the torrential rain and his chaotic footsteps still echoed from behind. For a brief second, I thought about running straight home. It would only take 5 minutes if I went the right way. But at that time, he was close by, Too close. If I lead him back there, to where Kayla is sleeping peacefully under the duvet, what will happen if he breaks down the door? I can't bear that thought. So I turned around, rushed into the forest. I almost hit the wet tree branches, but didn't stop. Branches scratched my face. Tall grass caught my feet. But I kept running. From childhood to adulthood, I have never stepped deep into this forest at night. No one does. People call it an anonymous bunch of trees, no signs, no paths, just old tree trunks standing close together like a fence. A place not meant for humans after dark. I stopped after feeling like I couldn't lift my legs anymore. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. I slid down, leaning against a thick tree trunk with rough bark. The rain is still falling. Above my head, small drops of water fell continuously from the leaves, like each beat of a countdown clock. I can't hear footsteps anymore. There was no screaming. There is no sound of knives dragging on rocks like in a horror movie. Only wind, rain, and absolute silence. I covered my mouth with both hands. My breathing is too loud, too noisy. In this darkness, if he hears even one wrong breath, I will never go home again. I curled up, pressing myself close to the tree trunk as if I could melt into the bark. My hands are shaking. My whole body trembled, not because of the cold, but because I was too awake to feel the ultimate fear. I started imagining the most terrible things. He is nearby, just a few steps away. Maybe he was crawling, not making a sound. Maybe him know I'm hiding behind a tree, and was waiting for me to come out on my own. I imagined him standing right behind the tree I leaned against, knife in hand, silent as darkness. I don't know how much time has passed, but I still didn't move. I think about my mother. She often complains about my lack of sleep and staying up late. But she always kisses me on the forehead before going to work the night shift. I thought about my father, who often secretly bought me horror books even though my mother did not agree. I think about Kayla. I want to live, but in that moment, I was not sure I can. Each hiss of the wind sounded like a human voice. Every sound of falling leaves makes me want to scream. I feel like I'm suffering stalked by silence. I started to lose feeling in my legs. The cold and shivering made me feel like I was melting into the earth. I closed my eyes, then opened them again, afraid that if I closed them for too long, when I opened them again, he will be right in front of me. A moment later, I heard a small cry from afar. Not crazy screaming. It was a sound like a sob, or a dry cough. It's not like him, but I don't dare go find out. I just know where it came from, left side. The deeper side of the forest. Don't be curious, Elias. Don't leave your seat, I reminded myself. But deep down, I understand that can't hide here forever. If he's still out there, he'll find me. If I want to live, I must proactive. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stand up. My legs were numb as if they were being pricked by needles. I grabbed the tree stump to keep my balance, then quietly looked around. Can't see anything but black shadow on top of black shadow. I don't see the lights. No trail visible. I'm lost. I turned my back, intending to move in the opposite direction from the coughing sound just now. When I slipped, an underground tree root caused me to fall down, hitting my back hard against another tree. It hurt so much that I gasped for air. If he were still here, he would definitely hear it. But there was no one. No footsteps. No knife. Don't scream. Nothing. I burst into tears. Not because of pain, but because I'm tired. So tired that I want to give up. Have you ever been pushed to your limits? Not physically, but mentally, when you're so scared your emotions have no place to exist. Only your bare instincts are trying to keep alive? Elias, only 15 years old, had to fall into such a night. No one listens. No one came to save. It's just you, the darkness, and the nameless fear lurking behind every tree. Keep listening, because later on, Elias will have to make the most important choice of his life: stay or walk out. Hide or resist. If the story touches a deep fear in you, go for it. Like to give more strength to Elias. Share if you ever had a moment where you thought there was no way back, and somehow you survived. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because the final part is approaching. And not everyone gets to hear the story from someone who has returned. I thought I would never leave that forest. But I was wrong. After falling into the tree, I lay still for a long time. The wind whistled through the leaves. The rain wasn't too heavy anymore. but the ground beneath my back was cold enough to make my spine ache. I don't know how long I lay there, maybe 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. Time has no meaning anymore. There was only me left, breathing heavily, and darkness as thick as ink covering every direction. In the end, I decided, if I keep lying here, I'll never get out. No one will find me. No one knows where I am. He could have left, or waiting, but I can't wait anymore. I must find a way home. I stood up. Every joint seemed to be fighting against me. But the thought of Kayla, my sister, pulled me away once again. I promised to tell it a story. And I don't intend to break my promise. I choose to go in the direction I want. Guess it's the opposite of a residential area. Because I knew that path would lead around the back of the park, where there is a side trail that few people know about. When I was a child, I used to follow my father there to fly a kite. And he once said, if you get lost, remember, just follow the gentle slope down and you will get out. I remember his words, and I go. On the road, I saw traces. A pair of shoes left in the middle of the grass. A torn plastic bag. A crushed baseball cap. I don't know who left it. It could be him, could be someone else, but I didn't stop to find out. I'm still alive, and now I don't intend to waste a second on curiosity. Finally, after a confusing walk through unfamiliar yet familiar trees, I saw it lights. Just a small yellow dot. But it's all I need. I run. Don't care if your shoes are muddy. Your shirt is stuck to tree branches. Or your breathing is so rapid that it feels like you're about to explode. I just keep running. And then, me escape from the forest. I appeared at the end of a side street, a few blocks from my house. I turned my head to look back. The darkness of the forest still stood there silently. Not saying a word, as if nothing had ever happened. But I know, I just left a nightmare. I walked home in the rain. Cold, exhausted, but still healthy. When I reached the back door, I quietly opened it and walked in like a ghost. The whole family is still sleeping. The hallway lights are still dimmed. No one knew that their son had just narrowly escaped death. I didn't sleep right away. I sat on the floor of my room, wrapped in a blanket, looking out the window, where the raindrops rolled down as if nothing was different. But inside me, everything has changed. I told this story to my parents a few days later, after calming down enough to speak. At first they didn't believe it, but when they saw my torn coat, my muddy shoes, and the way I was startled when I heard footsteps, they understood. We reported to the police. A small investigation was launched, but no man matching the description was found. No one knew who he was, where he came from, and why he was lying in the middle of the road in the rain. They just said, "Luckily you didn't collapse." I don't need to know the reason. I just need to know I'm still alive. Several years have passed since that rainy night. I still live in the old neighborhood. The park is still there, peaceful, green as if it had never witnessed anything unusual. But I am different. I learned the most important thing from that night. That quietness does not always mean safety. That a familiar path can become a place where we are hunted. That the survival instinct, even if immature, can still save us when reason is paralyzed. And most importantly, that being a kind person doesn't mean always having to move forward. Sometimes, retreating and protecting ourselves is the bravest thing we can do. I still remember his eyes. That distorted smile. But now, they no longer control me. They just remind me. Every step in the night can be a life or death decision. If you've ever found yourself alone in the dark, ever confused about whether to trust your gut or your reason, please like to support Elias. If you've ever been through a night where there seemed to be no way out, comment to share your journey. Maybe your story will be the reason someone survives. And don't forget subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, where survivors speak out. Not to recount their fears, but to affirm that darkness will never win if we do not stop. Story 3: Encounter on the deserted riverbank. I need a place where no one knows I'm there. That feeling when you go through a breakup that seems to shatter everything inside of you. No one can prepare for it. My name is Anisha, 29 years old. I'm still what others call independent and resilient, the type of woman who can drive across state lines, pitch a tent in the woods without wincing, and even handle a blown tire on her own without calling for assistance. But no matter how strong I was, I couldn't escape the shock after that breakup. It wasn't because he betrayed him, there was nothing that dramatic. It's the way everything quietly falls apart. Like a wooden house that seems solid, then suddenly rots from the inside. By the time I realized it, everything was ruined, and I'm stuck with that wreckage. In my heart, in my head, I need to leave this world for a bit. Not in a desperate way, but need space to breathe. And in my personal dictionary, that means pack your backpack, load your car, and disappear from the map for a few days. I decided to go back to a place I had been to, one quiet river in Northern California. Almost forgotten by casual campers. There is no instruction sheet. There are no public restrooms. There was only a bumpy dirt road leading into the forest, and a winding river as if hiding something important among the trees. I've been here once, 3 years ago, also after a breakup, and it was there, in perfect silence, that I found some of myself again. This time, I hope that miracle will repeat. I set out on an overcast Friday morning. My car is an old but sturdy SUV, with big tires and a high chassis, perfect for forest roads. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Just leave a message for your sister. Go camping for a few days. It's safe. Don't worry. It took me nearly 5 hours to reach the forest area. As I turned onto the familiar dirt road, I felt my heart lighten. The trees are dense. No more phone signal. Only the sound of tires grinding against gravel and birds chirping in the distance remained. The sky is gray, signaling that rain is coming. Perfect. But when my car approached the trailhead, where I usually park my car and then walk to the riverbank, I stopped. There were 2 trucks parked there. One was an old silver gray. The other was white, with a few predatory fish stickers on it. There was no one around the car. And there was no noise. Just, they are there. Quietly. It was as if invisible eyes were watching from the woods. I turned off the car engine and sat still. The feeling is not obvious, but unpleasant. I didn't expect anyone to be here. In fact, this place is so remote that almost no one else can find it. Last time I came, I couldn't even see other people's shoe prints. But now, 2 cars, at the same time? I have heard the advice, if it doesn't feel right, don't try to force yourself to stay. But I'm also the type of person who's not easily pushed away by vague discomfort. I checked my multi-purpose knife and travel pistol, always hidden in a locked box in the car. Then took down my backpack. They were probably just fishing. I thought to myself, this area is very large. We can go deeper, a few hundred meters away from them. I put on my backpack, hooked up my tent, and started walking down the trail that led to the river bend. As I walked, I listened, not only to the sounds of nature, but also own quietness. That very unique kind of quiet, when you no longer have to reply to messages. Don't have to pretend to smile. Don't have to explain to anyone that, I'm fine. I only walked for about 15 minutes. Then arrived right where I wanted, a soft bend in the river, with a flat rock like a table, and bushes growing thick enough to form a natural barrier. I set up my tent there, my back to the forest, my face facing the river. No waves, there are no people. It's just me, the flowing water, and the sound of the wind through the leaves. I should feel at peace. But I don't. Not because of the sound of the forest, but because I feel like something doesn't fit. A very thin intuition, like the morning dew that has not yet melted, but also very real. I sighed, opened my backpack to get some food, and said to myself, maybe this is just the emotional residue from the breakup. Maybe I'm imagining it, but deep inside me, something started recede like the tide. And I don't know yet. A tidal wave is approaching. If you've ever had those days when everything in you feels like it's falling apart, and you just want to go far away to find yourself again, you're not alone. But sometimes, the place you choose to heal, it's not just you. Stay tuned for the story. By Anisha's tranquility is just the first surface layer. Below that, a stranger is waiting to enter her world, uninvited. As soon as I saw those 2 trucks, I knew this place was no longer the same place I remembered. My trip was supposed to be a journey back to tranquility. I'm not looking for adventure. I don't need breathtaking scenery, I just need controlled solitude. But from the moment I turned onto the trail leading to the old river, things didn't go as expected. My SUV slowly slowed as 2 large vehicles appeared through the trees. A silver truck, an old pickup truck but still in good condition. The other car is white, a type of car that locals often use to carry fishing or hunting gear. There was no one in sight, no sound of conversation, only 2 metal blocks motionless in the middle of the wet forest. Like 2 strangers waiting for something. I sat still in the car, my hands still on the steering wheel. Don't know why, but But I feel like I've been seen, as if my presence was registered the moment my wheels touched the ground. A stream of cold air ran down my spine. I turned on the emergency lights for a moment as a reflex. Then immediately turned them off. No specific reason, but intuition, the thing I always learned to listen for when camping alone, is knocking on the door repeatedly. It's not okay. Staying here is dangerous. Turn around. But I didn't do that. Because I hate the feeling of giving up. And since I've felt like this before and survive, I took a deep breath, opened the car door, and got out. The sound of crushed stone under the soles of my shoes reminded me of where I was. I'm no longer in the city. Here, every movement has an echo, and sometimes, someone is listening. I opened the trunk, took out my backpack, and checked the handgun hidden in the locked bag. My hands weren't shaking, but my heart was beating so hard that I felt every beat in my chest. I turned to look at the two cars again. Still silent. The door is closed. There is no movement. I thought to myself, Anisha, don't let your imagination ruin what you need. You are here for yourself. For freedom, not to be haunted by the presence of others. This area is large. I know every turn, every shortcut. If necessary, I can set up camp a few hundred meters away, near the riverbank, hidden behind some bushes and rocks. I decided to go deeper into the forest, crossing the rockfall trail I used 3 years ago. I walked slowly, listening to every sound. The forest today seems heavy. It was as if the foliage was also keeping silent on purpose. A moment later, I heard the sound of running water, a familiar sound that calmed me down a bit. I'm almost there. I felt the terrain around me begin to open up. The old river section appeared behind the curtain of leaves like a greeting from memory. I camped there, about a 15 to 20 minute walk from the main trail. No one could accidentally pass by and see it. I chose a piece of high land, with my back against the rocks, facing the river. This place is completely isolated. A place far enough to hide, close enough to run, if need be. I set up the tent quickly, proficiently like an experienced person. But every movement has something heavier than usual. Every time I return to the deep forest, my heart sinks a beat. I still remember that feeling clearly. Someone is watching me from a place my eyes can't reach. I turned on the handheld radio, no signal. Not surprising. I also didn't bring my phone because I wanted to get away from everything. But it was at this moment that I began to wonder. If I need to call for help, will anyone hear? I tried to push that thought away. I set up a chair, poured boiling water to make coffee, opened my notebook and wrote a few lines in my diary. But every word I write carries a question. Where are they? Who is the owner of the other two cars? Do they fish? Are they in this forest? Or, them never left the car? I don't know yet. Those same questions will become first warning. And when night falls, the answer would appear, clear, vivid, and more dangerous than anything I had ever faced. Have you ever been in a place that once made you feel at peace? Then suddenly that feeling disappeared just because something very small, like 2 empty cars? Have you ever entered a place to heal, but ended up having to fight to survive? Anisha thought she only needed a few days to regain her balance. But in the deep forest, even a silent presence can be a threat. Stay tuned for the story. By a figure was approaching her. And when Anisha opened her eyes in the darkness, the first thing she saw was light reflecting off an axe blade. If you feel Anisha's every heartbeat is beating along with yours, please like to give her more strength. Comment if you've ever listened to your gut feeling, and it was right. And subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. As the next section will tell you, can a woman alone in the woods become a victim? Or will be the last survivor? They didn't do anything wrong. But there was something completely wrong. I was staking out the tent when I heard footsteps on wet ground. Not a hasty step, no threat, but also unnatural. It hesitated, as if its owner was examining it, not sure if it should come closer. I didn't turn back right away. My instinct tells me, please stay neutral. I bent down to continue adjusting the rope to stretch the tent, at the same time tightening my grip on the small knife I was wearing at my hip. When I stood up straight and adjusted the canvas roof, I heard a man's voice. Oh, sorry if I startled you. We were just passing by. I'm back. 2 men. A tall, thin, shoulder-length brown hair. The other was shorter, muscular, with a shaved head. Both were dressed in fishing gear, fleece jackets, dark khaki pants, dirty and muddy shoes. The brown-haired one smiled palely. The other kept his face cold as stone. I nodded. trying to keep my voice normal. It's okay. Did you two come here to fish? The brown-haired man replied quickly. Yes, we came here a few days ago. Seeing that this place was so deserted, it was convenient. Are you going alone? That question came too quickly. There is no veneer of politeness. No reason. Simply ask directly. Are you alone? I hesitated for half a second, then answered as I had rehearsed. No, my friend went to get water on the other side of the river. I glanced toward the riverbank. There was no one there, but hoped that the way I spoke would be natural enough that they wouldn't get suspicious. The bald man followed my gaze. His eyes stopped for a long time in the clearing over there. Then nodded. Say nothing. For a moment, no one spoke. There was only the sound of running water, the sound of light rain pattering on leaves, and tense silence like a string pulled too far. I noticed the brunette holding a rolled-up jacket. He held it close to his chest, as if hiding something inside. Not food, not a fishing rod, not something a normal person would need to carry on a walk through a stranger's camp. I try to lighten the mood. This place is really beautiful. I came here a few years ago. It was very empty that time. The brown-haired man gave a lopsided smile. Then, asked my name. Not in a curious voice, but in someone's voice or collecting information. What is your name? I was a little speechless. Anita, I lied. And you guys? The brown-haired man smiled lightly. The bald man remained silent. I'm Will, and this is Ivan. I nodded. My eyes remained glued to Will's hand, clutching the jacket. I saw it clearly now. The tip of something metal peeked out from the fabric. I know this feeling. It doesn't come from a clear action, which comes from all of those things not clear. The way they stood too close for no reason. The way the other person kept an observant silence. The way Will asked my name without any intention of being polite, and something else is being hidden. I gently squeezed the handle of the small knife at my side. Then made an excuse. I have to start a fire. My friend is coming back soon. I hope you two catch a lot of fish. Will nodded, and Ivan turned away first. Without saying a word, they left my camp, but I don't feel safer. Just see, they know where I am. Know I seem alone, and know my name, or at least, the name I just made up. I sat down, pretending to stack firewood, but my mind was spinning. The days I spent recovering, to find my inner strength, suddenly became a battlefield for me. I don't know when I was targeted. And at that moment, something happened that almost made me cry. I saw a muddy pink bracelet falling in the corner of the grass next to the tent. I recognized it immediately. That is the handmade bracelet that Kayla, my best friend's little daughter, gave me before leaving. You have to wear it, so if you get scared, you remember I'm praying for you. I hung it on my backpack, but when I set up camp it must have fallen out and I didn't notice. I picked it up, clasped it in my hand, and for the first time that day, I feel like I'm not completely alone. I still have Kayla, and those who love me, and me will survive to return. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and known I can't trust them, even though they haven't done anything wrong? Have you ever stood in the middle of nature, but seen it? The forest and trees are like holding their breath. Anisha just wants peace and quiet. But that silence was just torn apart by a look, a question, and a metal object peeking out of the jacket. Stay tuned, because tonight, Anisha will no longer only worry about loneliness after a breakup, but about of surviving something she couldn't name, but had seen, in Will's eyes. If you ever trust your own hunches, do prefer this story is to give strength to Anisha. Comment if you've ever met someone who sent chills down your spine, even though they never touched you. And subscribe to the channel after 0 hours so as not to miss the next part, when night falls. And the shadow standing outside the tent will need no introduction. I don't know what's worse, the darkness outside, or the thoughts forming in my head. It started to rain when I had just finished eating a simple dinner, a package of dry noodles and a few apple slices. The rain wasn't heavy, just enough to create droplets that clattered on the tent canvas and occasionally fell onto my cheeks through the dense foliage. Cool wind, slightly cold, clean air, perfect. If only. There's been something sitting in my chest since the afternoon. I checked the gun again, still in place. Safe, loaded. I also didn't light a big fire. Just enough light to see my hands. I know one thing for sure. Light attracts what you cannot see in the dark. The sky turned dark gray as the sun completely set behind the mountains. I retreated into the tent, pulled the zipper to block out the rain, sat on my sleeping bag and turned on the small ceiling-mounted flashlight. I tried to read a few pages of the book, but no words entered my head. My mind just went back to Will and Ivan's eyes. I don't know where they are. They said just passing by. But 2 cars are still parked outside. And from the moment they left my camp, everything became too quiet. No sound of fish kicking. No sound of people speaking. No laughter. There was only silence. I started writing a few lines in my travel diary. Runes. Uneven appearance. Day 1. Met 2 strange men. Couldn't trust either of them. Checked for weapons. Feeling bad. Not sure if there's anyone around here, but I'm not alone. Feeling very clear. And then, the noise started. Very light. Very slow. A squeak. Squeak. Sound like the sound of wet shoes stepping on mud. Right outside the tent. I stiffened. Not breathing. The lights in the tent were still dimly lit. I turned it off immediately. The tent fell into complete darkness. I listened. Footstep. A circle. Sometimes near. Sometimes far. No hustle. Don't try to hide. It was as if the outsider was leisurely walking around, waiting for a reaction. I gently slid my hand under the sleeping bag, looking for the gun. Hands shook from cold and fear. I remained silent, not daring to breathe loudly. My heart was beating so fast that I was afraid it would make a sound. Don't do anything stupid. Anisha, don't turn on the lights. Don't speak up. Observe first. I sat motionless for nearly 30 seconds. The footsteps still did not leave. And then, I see the ball. Through the thin fabric of the tent. A shadow fell. Clear. People. Stand still. I bit my lip until it bled. I turned on the flashlight. Very fast. Shining straight out through the thin fabric. And that was the time I saw his face. Will. Stand right there. So close that I could see raindrops dripping down the bridge of his nose. Reflecting the light, his face was expressionless. No anger. No smile. No fear. Just empty. And in his hand is a small axe. Don't hide. No explanation. Just standing there. Look. I stopped. The light shined directly on his face. He blinked, then tilted his head. Just like in the afternoon. I popped the zipper, grabbed my gun, and walked out of the tent. The rain is getting heavier. I don't scream. I'm not shaking. I kept my voice as calm as possible, even though my throat felt tight. Put the axe down. Now. He looked at me. Immobility. Will, I don't know what you're doing, but if you take another step, I'll shoot. He blinked. Then he uttered a sentence that made my blood freeze. Ivan didn't want me to come find you. But, I've already dealt with Ivan. I was speechless. I have to. Now it's your turn. He lifted his foot, intending to step forward. I shoot into the air. The sound of gunfire echoed through the forest, echoing from the cliffs. He was startled and staggered. I pointed the gun straight at his chest. I'll say it one last time. Put down the axe. Take off your shoes. Turn around. Go. He stopped. Already. Very slow. He dropped the axe to the ground. Shoo. Turn your back. I didn't take my eyes off him as he walked slowly into the forest. Barefoot. I stepped back, picked up the axe, kept the gun at the ready. And when his shadow disappeared into the darkness, I kneeled down, burst into tears, not because of weakness, but because I had just saved myself, with all the strength I had left. Have you ever been in a moment where you were forced to become cold, even though every cell in you was trembling with fear? Have you ever been faced with a blank look in your eyes, and know full well, if you do nothing, will you no longer be able to tell your story? Anisha did not seek danger. She was just looking for peace and quiet. But that night, the silence had turned into footsteps outside the tent, and the only person standing between her and death is herself. If you feel the tension in Anisha's every step, please like to cheer her up. Comment if you've ever had to be strong in a moment when you thought you were going to fall. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because in the sequel, Anisha will have to leave, with a stranger's axe in her backpack. And a decision that changes the rest of her life. I used to think if I stayed calm, everything would pass. But there are moments. Just staying calm is not enough. Will turned away, walking barefoot in the rain at night. Every step he took was imprinted on the soggy ground, as if the darkness itself didn't want to hold him back. I stood there, the gun still pointed at his back. My hands clenched so tight it was numb. He didn't come back, but in my head, that lifeless gaze, the gaze that looked at me through the tent fabric. under the light reflecting off the axe blade, is still there. When his shadow disappeared into the forest, I couldn't breathe a sigh of relief. There is no feeling of getting away with it, only an empty space in my chest, as if I had just traded a part of my soul to survive. I put my gun away, picked up his axe, heavy, wet, muddy. I don't intend to keep it as a trophy, but as evidence. Proof of what I just experienced, not an illusion. I went back into the tent, but couldn't sleep. The lights in the tent were still off. I sat in the dark, my hand clutching the handle of the axe, my ears listening to every sound, the draft, the falling branches, every drop of rain as a reminder that everything is still not safe. About an hour later, I stood up, began cleanup in silence. I packed the tent as quickly as possible, folded the canvas, compressed the sleeping bag, and packed my belongings into my backpack. Every time I pull the zipper or tie a knot, my heart skips a beat, afraid that the noise will wake something that hasn't left. Once everything was in the backpack, I slung it over my shoulder, hid the axe in the side compartment, the gun in the chest pocket, and turned on the flashlight. I started to leave the place that used to be my shelter. Now it's just the scene. I walked slowly, but didn't stop. It's still raining. Slippery walkway. Every time my feet sank into the mud, my heart skipped a beat. I go by instinct. No GPS, no signal, but me remember the way. Remember each tree trunk, every turn. Only, this time, I look at things differently. Every noise is suspicious. Every shadow could be his return. And when you walk through the woods at night after confronting an axe-wielding man, silence is no longer peaceful. It is a signal for something or hiding. About 40 minutes later, I reached the main trail, where my car was parked, and my heart tightened again. The other two trucks, Will and Ivan's, still there, parked silently. No lights, no engine, like two silent witnesses who refused to leave. I stood hiding behind a tree. Observe, there is no movement, no light. I waited another 5 minutes, then another 5 minutes. When I was sure there was no one, I quickly stepped out of my hiding place, unlocked the car, threw my backpack into the backseat and jumped into the driver's seat. I locked the door, start the machine, and then, I burst into tears. Not because of weakness, but because I'm still alive. And only then did I truly allow myself to feel it. I drove out of the woods. Don't stop, don't turn around. When the signal returned, I stopped on the side of the road, my hands still shaking, and called the police. My voice was hoarse as I reported my location, described the incident, details about Will, Ivan, the axe, and the chilling confession that I took care of him. I don't know what happened to Ivan. Maybe Will lied, or not, but I left before that story could continue, and I'm lucky I didn't become a sequel. A week later, the police called back. They found an abandoned camp. There were signs of a struggle. There's blood, but nobody. No Ivan, no Will. I don't know if that makes me feel lighter or heavier. Just know that from that day, I never go camping alone without telling someone in advance. Never trust any eyes completely. Never underestimate the alarm bell inside you. I still love nature, still camping, but now, I'll go with you a wiser heart, and a no longer naive mind. Have you ever escaped something you couldn't name, but you knew damn well? If you had stayed just 5 more minutes, is it over? Anisha is not a superhero. She's just a woman who knows listen to your own hunches. And that, however small, saved her life. If this story makes your heart skip a beat, if you've ever felt like something wasn't right and no one believed you, please like to accompany Anisha. Comment if you ever experience a situation where instinct is the only thing that will lead you home safely. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours. Because in the final part of the story, Anisha will stand in the sunset, looking towards the old forest, and wondering, will he ever come back? I still go camping, but it's not the same Anisha as before. 3 weeks after that night, I received a call from the investigator in charge of the case. We followed the location you provided. The camp was abandoned. There were blood stains. There were items with fingerprints on them. But there was no one. There was also no body. His voice was flat and cold like a news report. But for me, that was the end, or at least it was safe silence after a nightmare. The incident was not reported on the news. There is no TV news. There is no verdict. There was nothing to let anyone know what happened that night in the woods I once called a place of healing. But for me, I know clearly, I survived. And maybe, I'm not the only person he's been following. But I was the only one who escaped. I didn't dream about Will. I didn't dream of seeing his eyes. Or the cold axe in my hand. But I bring it a new feeling, not of fear, but of alertness. It was like I had just abandoned a layer of tinted glass that had made me believe that nature was the only safe place in the world. Not anymore. But that doesn't mean I give up everything. 3 months after the incident, I packed my backpack again. It's not because I forget the past, but because I refuse to let fear close your life. I just changed my approach. I clearly announced the route to my close friends. I carry a satellite locator, an emergency alarm, a folding knife, a second flashlight, and even alarm wires around the camp. I no longer take the noises in the night lightly. I don't talk to strangers out in the woods for too long. And me never set up camp in the same place, even if that place was where I once found myself. I go to another place, another forest, also quiet. The wind also whispers through the trees. But now I is another version of yourself. I sat next to the small fire, the breeze blowing through my hair. And for the first time in months, I feel safe in my own skin. I don't have to pretend to be strong anymore, because I've done what not everyone can do: stay calm in the face of danger. I held the axe I had brought with me, not Will's axe, but the one I bought myself after that incident. It's not for defense, but to remind that I walked through a night that a lot of people would never believe. But I myself am a witness, and a survivor. There's something that people rarely say about people who have experienced terrible things. They don't tell their stories just to gain pity. They tell because each time they repeat it, they regain a part of their sovereignty in their own lives. I tell you so you understand. You can be strong, love nature, live independently, and still have the right to feel scared. You may have been forced into an unforeseen situation, and still worthy of moving on. Don't let anyone tell you that you're weak for carrying a weapon, for being wary of strangers, for checking the map 3 times. You are not weak. You are existing intelligently. I will never know who Will really is. I also won't know if Ivan is still alive. But I know one thing clearly: I was in the right place, at the right time, with the right mindset, and that saved me. If you're listening to these lines, maybe you felt alone in the dark, forced to be strong when no one else was there. Maybe you've held onto an item like Kayla's bracelet to remind yourself, I must not fall. If so, know that you are not alone. I am Anisha. I camped alone to heal my wounds. I had the worst of it one rainy night. And I still come back, stronger, more alert, and not apologetic for surviving. If you feel empathy for this journey, if you believe in your intuition and your inner strength, please drop like to cheer on people like Anisha in real life. Let's comment if you ever get over something that stops you from being the same person. Let others know that there is light at the end of the storm. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel after 0 hours, where we tell stories not just to scare you, but to give voice back to those who lost it in the dark night. Because sometimes, the scary thing is not being outside the forest, but the fact that no one knows you've been there. But today, Anisha narrated, and you heard.